We spend an enormous amount of energy worrying about what's coming next. We lay awake imagining all the ways we might fail, how a situation might hurt, or ultimately what it means to face the end of our lives. We often assume that a good life is a foundation built on avoidance, that we can only be at peace once we've successfully navigated around every potential source of pain or loss. But treating life like a minefield creates a cruel irony. When your primary goal is avoiding danger, your every decision is dictated by the exact anxieties you're trying to escape. We can see the absolute extreme of this mindset in ancient Rome. Emperor Nero commanded the largest empire on Earth, possessing absolute global power. Yet he was entirely consumed by paranoia, terrified of everyone around him. That paranoia drove him to an extreme, irreversible decision. He ordered the execution of his own lifelong tutor, the philosopher Seneca. When the imperial soldiers arrived at Seneca's home to deliver the death warrant, the natural expectation would be desperate bargaining, panic, or a plea for mercy. But that didn't happen. The all-powerful emperor who ordered the hit was trembling in his palace, while the condemned teacher facing the sword remained perfectly at peace. The question is how anyone can look execution in the eye without blinking. Inside Seneca's house, the room descended into chaos. His wife and his students broke down weeping as the armed guards read the verdict. Seneca gathered them together and issued a calm directive. "Stop weeping," he said. "I've spent my life teaching you how to live. Now let me show you how to die." And then he opened his own veins. The pain and the blood loss were real. His body was shutting down. Yet his voice never shook. Until his final breath, he simply continued to teach philosophy to the people in the room. He neutralized the psychological terror of his own execution because his mind was operating in an entirely different reality than the soldiers who came to kill him. This was the ultimate test of the Stoic framework he championed, the absolute separation between what objectively happens to us and the story we choose to tell ourselves about it. On the left is the event itself, the objective biological facts of Seneca's execution. An incision is made, blood pressure drops, a heartbeat fades. But we rarely stop at biology. We immediately layer on the story, attaching subjective meanings, tragedy, victimization, and terror. Nero tried to impose a story of humiliation and defeat on his old teacher. Seneca simply refused to accept the draft. He authored his own narrative, deciding that this biological event was going to be his final philosophical lecture. Death couldn't break him because he saw the unchangeable biology for what it was and flat out refused to dress it up in a narrative of fear. Seneca's composure suggests that while we cannot control every external circumstance, we do retain authority over how we interpret those events. You probably aren't going to face down a squad of Roman soldiers, but you will inevitably face lost jobs, broken relationships, and physical decline. The sting of those modern failures is an unavoidable event. The prolonged suffering and anxiety that follows, that is a purely optional story. By maintaining his composure in those final moments, Seneca demonstrated his philosophy in its most extreme application. If a person can govern their own narrative during an execution, they can certainly do so during the smaller trials of everyday life. It's tempting to think this cognitive discipline is a luxury, something that only worked for a highly privileged Roman statesman who spent his life studying in quiet libraries. But history gives us an immediate counterexample. At roughly the same time, an individual with zero political power and zero freedom was using this exact same framework to endure a lifetime of brutal physical hardship. He proved that mastering the story in your head can elevate a powerless slave into one of history's most important philosophers. We'll explore his path next.